Hello, and welcome to the Wake Up with Giants radio show. This is episode 29. I'm joined here in studio with some incredible league members and special guest co hosts. We're going to jump right into our centering today so that we are on time on Cat Country Radio. So if you are heading out and you're looking for something to listen to, please do go to thedonpiercestudios.com and listen to us for the next hour. We'll be on air at 1 o'clock Eastern time, right on the dot. So we're going to go ahead and start our centering, sitting up nice and straight and tall, breathing in and out. In and out. In and out. I show up today in the present moment as a leader, but also as a student from our incredible league members and our incredible guest co-hosts today. We are fortunate enough to have two guest co-hosts today, and I in particular am incredibly interested in this topic as an introvert. So I hope to learn a lot from our guest co-host today. I show up in my vulnerability, in humility, and to make a difference in just one person's life. Nick?
Yeah, I show up today kind of in humility to be surrounded by so many giants, not only here, but in all the shows that we do and the community. And so I show up in service today to share, what I can around this information, but also to learn in a way, but to serve our community, to impact 100 million lives globally or more, and to work toward our vision of having that Pixar movie. So this is one of those ways that we continue to serve the world and make a difference.
Thank you. Ryan?
I show up today powerfully and bringing my experience and my abilities, but also in humility and gratitude to learn and to grow and to help impact 100 million lives, and grateful for these other giants and for their gifts and blessings that they bring, their talents, and excited to see what the universe has in store for us today.
Thank you. Paula?
Grateful to be here today as a fellow introvert. I'm here to use my voice, to speak my voice loud and clear, to support others in sharing their voice and becoming storytellers in their life for the highest good of all.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, show up to discover others' unique perspectives, spend time around like-minded individuals and just see how we can all contribute to this beautifully complex world, right? And also, serve as a beacon of light for those who need it, be a vessel for that message. And like I was saying, touch one person all the way up to 100 million. It starts with one, and just do what we can each day.
Amazing. Thank you very much, everyone. So we're going to go ahead here in a few seconds and get going on our radio show for all of our social media friends. Ryan says hello. Katrina is here. Oh, I just tried to post that and it didn't come up. Katrina says hello. There we go. We might have a lag here on this end. There we go. All right, we're going to go live here. We're just playing our little intro there, and then we'll get started. And we'll let all of you know what our topic is today. And we'll introduce our amazing guest co-hosts. And, of course, our amazing league members. Hugh says White is here.
White Buffalo.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Wake Up with Giants radio show. I am Lady Luck, and I am joined here in the studio by some incredible co-hosts today. We have Nick, the Gentle Giant, and Ryan, the Lion, league members. And we have our Egbert guest co-host today, Justin Tin, and an incredibly special guest co-host as well, Paula Meyer. And we are all here today to talk about how to be more genuine and authentic in conversation, something I need to learn for one. And I'm going to move us right over to Justin to get us started on speaking more genuinely and authentically in conversation.
No pressure at
Welcome.
all. She just pulls the pin and throws it over.
Nope.
Ready, go.
Grenade.
Melissa was saying before.
Grenade.
Yeah, Melissa was saying before the show how she's an introvert, so she was like, poo, throws it on over.
That's what introverts do. They throw it back.
That's right.
No, that's good, because I know how these shows go, and I really like to, just get the topic started. Let's just dive in and just see, how this spider web unfolds and see where we end, in the hour. And it's going to be an amazing conversation. I do greatly appreciate you all having me on. This is something that's near and dear to me. This is something that has always been just natural for me, and I understand there's introverts out there. Obviously, there's all different types of people, but I've always just genuinely been fascinated by people, just curiously fascinated by anyone and everyone. I will talk to any stranger about anything. And for me, looking at it as more genuine and authentic, they're similar in a way, right? If you look at them, genuine, authentic, but for me, the authentic part is the core of us, right? It's our being, and then the genuine is how we show up for others and what we're doing for others, right? So one is inner and one is outer. And it's just, doing what's right for you. I've always just been curious of people's backstories. I've always been the person, my mom, even when I was a kid, and this is something we talked about on the first show, I would just wander off and talk to strangers. Like, I was just always interested in people. And I think, it really serves others to just be present, to be in the conversation that you're having, and not be, we have a tendency as people are talking to just continuously think about the next thing that we're going to say. It's like, are we really listening to what they're saying, or are we just waiting for our chance to respond, right? And it's something you have to be like super aware of. You have to stay really present on. And I've been really focusing on this lately, and like giving myself or giving the other person, a second or two of pause from when
Are you done yet? So I can talk?
Justin, I remember from our show, like I think we mentioned this when we were in Wake Up with Giants TV, and we were talking about how you would just wander off and start talking to strangers. I started thinking about the Bible and Jesus, and Jesus would wander off, and parents are like, Where's Jesus? I just saw, where's Justin? He's in the grocery store just chatting it up with people.
Guilty, always guilty. But really just been giving the conversation, a split second in between from when someone else stops to before I say anything. Just kind of see if they're going to come back with anything else, see if they're actually finished with what they're saying. And also to give myself that moment to, is this where I need to, input a statement, or is this where I need to, dive deeper and ask another question and really go into what they're saying? And, a lot of people are trying to tell you, things about themselves that they're not really saying. We have a filter process, a filtration system that only allows us to kind of convey messages or kind of be mysterious or hide what we're really trying to say. And I want to get to the root of the problem, and you see that a lot in like sales and things like that. Like people, everybody wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. So you have to kind of figure out how to like navigate that conversation and just have fun with it and see how you can serve them and see how the product or service that you're using is really going to, serve them and help them. And you have to do that with questioning. You have to do that with getting to the root of it. And for me, it's big.
I like that you say the root in there. I've got a little bit of an echo here, but we'll go with it. The root, the word Genesis or genuine, Genesis, birth, right? It's born within you. And so genuine is just coming from what's born within you. But we have this perception and this way of listening. So we speak from our way of listening. And so when we're talking to other people, we're doing it from what we perceive the world as. And so also when they speak back, that's the way we're hearing them. And so we're not hearing them for what they're saying. A lot of times we're hearing them from what we're listening from, our perception. Paula, I see your head shaking around that. What came up?
Yeah. It's interesting that, Melissa is a fellow introvert like me. And I've realized over the years as I've been working on my voice and speaking up, that I'm not really an introvert, and I use that label. That's the label that I've been given myself based on my upbringing. And really, if I'm around the right people that are listening, like Justin said, that are really listening, I can speak about anything, and I can speak with confidence and fluidity. And we just got to find the right people. That's why the League of Giants and other people that we connect with in this way are so important for us to learn to communicate effectively.
Yeah, there's a way of understanding. I see this. There's this little meme that floats around, and it's a guy. One side is looking at the 6, and the other's a 9, and they're both arguing about their perception, and they're both right, but neither one is stepping over to the other side to see it from the other side. So there's this loss of understanding. And so, can we speak to that about understanding and putting ourselves over there? Because I see a lot of it where we're so polarized right now in a lot of things. Justin, what came up there?
Yeah, I love that image that comes up, and it's really interesting to take a step back and just see, like, where did they come up with that? Like, how did they come up with that, right? Because our brain, we're perceiving so much information on a daily basis. Our brains have got really good at filtering out and just giving you the information that it thinks you need, right? So kind of looking, outside of that bubble and seeing, like, how did they come up with that has really changed a lot for me this year. Like, I used to be this person that was always trying to do, like, no, I know how to do everything and I can do it the best, right? And it's like, it's so interesting when I'm like, no, let me see how they do this. This year I've been like super in tune with that. And it's awesome how many things actually get done without me having to do it. But also just seeing, like, wow, that actually was an easier way to do that. Like, why haven't I thought of that before? It's
inside of that too, Justin. Like, I hear, like, you can, when you start thinking about how somebody else is coming up with the way that they're seeing things, you also build like almost like an understanding or an empathy for that person, and that connection can grow stronger as well. You might not agree perfectly, but you can at least say, oh, okay, that's how they came up with that. Like, and it can build that stronger bond.
I think that's the distinction between being right and empathy, though, because you could go in and correct them and tell them, you're not seeing it right. Well, good, you won. You got to be right.
You have no friends, but you're right.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what though? Sometimes I even notice in myself though, if somebody's questioning how I do something, I don't step back long enough to notice that they're actually interested in that solution. They're not questioning how I'm doing it to question the way I'm doing it. They're questioning it because they're actually genuinely interested in learning it. And I find that sometimes we will go back quickly without really listening to what they're after because we're getting defensive. You think they're after the wrong thing, right? And that's the ego, right? And I've had somebody question me before about how I'm doing something or how something's happening in my business, and I get defensive about it and go back and say I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. And no, Nick too. Yes, Nick's pointing at himself, but no, I had that happen with someone else, and I said no, we're okay. And he was actually just questioning because he was genuinely wanting to learn how I was doing it. But I got into this ego state and was defending the way I was doing it rather than being open to see what he was after and what he was actually trying to do and why he was questioning, right? So sometimes we get into that state.
Yeah, Melissa, I think that's so important to understand, like, your default way of communication. And because that's how initially we're going to interact with people. And I was thinking about this morning. My whole thing all my life is that my voice doesn't matter. So I noticed over the years that I would speak to people in a really low voice, which would prompt them to say, what? Then I'd repeat myself again, but in the same level of voice, which would prompt them to say again, what? And then I would speak louder and madder. And I was creating a justification of why my voice doesn't matter. And the interesting thing that I realized this morning, I'd forgotten about this, but my late husband, he pointed it out to me. He says, you know what, you're training people to communicate with you that way because that's your way of being comfortable. And I realized that, I did it with my son yesterday, this exact same scenario, the 3-time repeating myself. And the other thing that I think was really interesting too is that, we're creating patterns when we do that. And when I became consciously aware of that, my husband actually, in a moment later, when I was calm and not defensive, he kind of pointed that out to me that, you do that. And that's why you have trouble with it. And then the other thing that I thought was so interesting too, was that, so I train the people around me to say that what, but if I waited, like Justin said, waited just a couple seconds to see, as me being the speaker, most of the time they would respond back, even though they said what, they heard everything I said and they answered, but they were just following my pattern, which I found is really interesting that we train people that way.
So in the book, we have the 12 journeys that we talk about. One of the first journey that we talk about is unconsciousness. And when you have these unconscious behaviors and you're not aware of them, there's nothing to do with that. Because you're unconscious, right? But the moment you become aware of it, now you got some work to do. And so that awareness, what happens is we reject it. No, that's not me. I don't do that. I can't do that. Shameful to do that, whatever we do. And then we don't change it. And if you can just accept it and then move into the space of grieving, yeah, I did it that way and whatnot. We talk about the journey of grief and then into the journey of gratitude. You're able to turn that around, but it all starts with that awareness, because without that, you're just going to do what you've always done. You're going to have dialogue and it's going to be automatic and you're not going to be present.
Yeah.
I just posed that question, Nick. I don't know if you saw that in the comments, but like sometimes, so I've been listening to, I was going to say reading, but I don't read much. I Audible. So yeah, reading is below me apparently, but Audible, I could listen to it on a faster speed so I can get a lot, done. But I've been listening to the book, Existential Kink. And I'm not way far into it. I'm a few chapters in, but inside of it, a concept that hit me was that on some level, maybe we enjoy being a certain way. Like it's kind of like that. We show up maybe with that quiet voice, Paula, because on some level, we actually really enjoy that. That's where we want to have the validation or, and Nick, you've read the book, right? Or audibled the book. You've audibled. Is that a word, like an action verb?
I think it is now.
Yeah, audibled it.
I've listened
Ryan
to
just
it.
made it up.
Yeah.
Just making up words here.
Yeah.
So maybe you could help me there because I'm learning this concept and trying to dive into it.
I think you always you do things because they serve you.
Yeah.
And so Existential Kink, the book isn't about anything kinky. It's just where we have these kinks in our life that we hold on to because they serve us. And so our way of being and listening, Paula, in your example, it serves you on some level. Otherwise you wouldn't keep it, because we don't keep things that don't serve us. Like,
but can you also learn to love it and then be able to honor it and say, that's how I've been showing up. I'm so audible. I'm so audible. Yeah. But can you learn to love that still and accept that, hey, that's how I've been showing up, so that then you can be conscious and aware of it and possibly change.
Yeah, I would think so. Other thoughts around that? I'm going to lean on Justin.
Was that too kinky?
I'm going to call Justin out on that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do, right? And, that's something that Townsend always talks about is the things that we've done throughout our life have gotten us where we are. So they're not wrong, right? And we've done them so long that they're patterns. So if, you want to break them, then it's going to take a lot of, or adjust them, right? It's going to take a lot of awareness around that. And for me, like the past couple of years, I've really noticed how many things from the moment you wake up, how many things are requiring your attention, how many decisions you immediately start making as soon as you wake up, from, oh, did I get enough sleep, to do I want to get up, to, okay. And then you kind of like run through this routine, and throughout the day, you're just kind of playing whack-a-mole, right? We're just like going from decision to decision to decision. Like, and I was like, okay.
You just described my life perfectly.
Everyone, right? But I really like put the attention around like, okay, how many of these can I either, they don't need my attention now, or how many of these can I automate, right? And I just started removing things from my day, and it's wild how much space like frees up, and like just what you can hear in the quiet. It's amazing to me. From like, go ahead.
Yeah. No, my thought here is like you talk about whack-a-mole, but we're automating with our past perceptions. So when you get so busy, you're pulling in the stuff you've always done and gluing it together. You like smack it on the wall and stick that thing up there. Yes. And the problem with that is that your automations are what are keeping you stuck in the cycle. You might be perceiving it differently, talking about it differently, and then gluing it all together with what you've always done. Exactly. And so it doesn't change.
Or keeping it there with how you speak. So what you say is how you do, is how you're showing up, is who you be, right? Steve Hardison talks about who you be. And like he talks about, this kind of goes in a little bit of a tangent, but, talking about your time, he flip-flops it. It's just, I have all the time in the world. And guess what shows up? Plenty of time.
More time.
Yeah. And so could you change that with your, how you're showing up in your conversation and being authentic and genuine and things like that? But sorry, Melissa, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I love the concept of stepping back into the quiet that you talk about, whether it's stepping back into the quiet in your own life and in the things that are happening and are automated in your life, or even just in a text message. Have you ever noticed what happens in an actual conversation with someone when you sit quiet and you have that pause? What comes next after that pause from that person? Or what comes next when you sit and pause in a text conversation with someone? Instead of just texting back hurriedly right away, just give it that 30-second pause. What continues to come from that person? I've noticed, I've watched people almost have that full conversation and come right around themselves without me saying anything. And I can tell you, sometimes I step back and look at that response that came from them in my pause and in my silence and thought, I think if I had responded right away, I would have overreacted or misunderstood what they were saying to me. And now in those extra messages and in my pause, they've explained to me what they really meant and what was going on. And I could have actually created a disagreement if I had jumped on that and texted right away. So I often in that conversation will take a step back and pause.
I think of, there's a concept in my book, The Art of Accomplishment, called salmonic action. It's one of my declarations is I am salmonic action. And that concept is that salmon have the ability to stay perfectly still in the roughest of waters. And at the moment of opportunity, they'll shoot forward at lightning speed upstream, not downstream. Steve Chandler told me one time, he said, even a dead fish can float downstream. And so when the chaos is coming around you and you're in a dialogue like that, if you can have salmonic action where you're able to hold still and pause and then look for the opportunity or let it resolve itself, it will create opportunities for you. But if you're stuck in your listening and you're floating downstream, you're going to just get whatever comes.
Yeah, that pause, I feel like is really representative of holding the space for somebody and for yourself. You're allowing that unseen to formulate into whatever it's going to formulate into without putting your perspective on it right in that moment.
We get bombarded with social media, with news media, with our self-talk, with other people's talk, conversation, the workplace. Like they used to talk about, like standing over the water cooler, right, and getting a drink, and you'd hear all the gossip and and stuff like that. And maybe even we get overwhelmed with how we perceive everyone else thinks we should be. So when I think that stillness and that pausing, Paula, like you're talking about, like just separating it out and finding out what is really important. Who is Ryan? Who is Paula? What are your thoughts? Allows for the true self. I kind of wanted to go like this. I don't know why I'm pulling down across my face. People on the radio can't see what I'm doing, but social media, there you go. But then you can align and center with yourself and figure out really what you want, what aligns for you, what's authentic and genuine.
We should do a show on like a video where we just mime everything.
Yeah.
And just the opposite of radio, right? They don't get all the visual stuff.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, Ryan, I think that it works to get other people out of their shell too. Like, people don't like silence. So if you don't respond right away and you sit there, they are uncomfortable. They feel like they have to fill the silence. I get my children to speak that way. I just, I give them the mom look, and I just sit there and I give that extra pause, and they feel like they need to. They're
It's
like,
the
what?
mom interrogation tactics.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, what?
very
Oh, I
familiar.
did it. Okay, I'm sorry.
But it works because people don't like silence. They just keep trying to fill the void, and they'll
Who ate
just
the last
keep
cookie?
talking and filling. No,
There's
no
a
cookies in
YouTube
my
video about that. Have you seen that, where the mom holds out her hand and just stares at her son, and he looks at her and pauses for a minute, and then he hands her $20, and she's like, "What the heck?" Like, she wasn't trying to get anything from him.
I'm gonna go do that with my kids right now. I'll be back.
It
No,
works,
that
though.
pause.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity. Going to the word genuine again, right? The birth of something from you that's the opportunity to birth something from you that empowers your life. So when you're genuine, you're really speaking your truth. And that truth is, I look at the word honesty, means ownership. And so your truth is whatever you're holding as your own, what you're holding on to, your beliefs, right? You're holding them dear. And so when you speak genuinely, you're speaking that, whatever that is. And so truthfully, you're always doing that anyway. You're just not conscious of it. So I think aligning genuineness with things that serve you or that are useful would be kind of the next step, because I would say that you're already doing that. I mean, what else would you be speaking if you weren't speaking genuinely? Does that make sense? Justin, what did that bring up?
I mean, in a way, I feel like, around certain people, you have certain conversations, you have certain filters that you apply, right? Like when you're around family, you don't say certain things. When you're around certain friends, you tend to only talk about sports or politics or religion or whatever it is, right? I feel like there's these I noticed it yesterday. I had in-laws in town, and we were talking, and I noticed myself asking some of the same questions that I asked the last time I saw them. And I was like, is this like a routine, like a script that I pull out of my head because I'm around these certain people, right? Is this, I'm going to hang out. It's Sunday, right? Sports day. Now I go hang out with these people, and we talk all football and all sports and all. And then you go to work the next day and you talk, like you said, the water cooler talk. And you kind of have these set scripts or routines or questions that you follow around certain groups of people. And I think that can get washed out in a way. And then maybe you're not showing up as your true self or exploring really deep into that conversation.
I watched Free Guy last night with my kids. Probably shouldn't have gone with my kids. Had some good language in it.
Funny though.
But it was awesome because he's this non-player character in the movie, and he's designed to have certain routines, and they repeat and they're the same every day. And then he starts to step out of that routine and gain some clarity around what's possible for him. And so he becomes something totally different. But like you just did, Justin, we show up automatically in a conversation, and I do this with this group and I do this with that group. And it's almost like we're a non-player character in their life. Like we think we need to show up in that certain way with those people. And then when you pause, like what you just did, and you start to question that, why do I do this? It's like in that movie, you just put on the sunglasses, right? Mm-hmm. All the cool people had sunglasses on in that movie, but you put them on, you start to question your life, you create something different.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is our initial boundary setting. When we're in those situations, we initially go to a certain extent and we set our boundaries with those people. And then once we've set those boundaries, that we don't really push past it in any way. We just kind of stick there and stay there in that ball, where probably once we've known each other for a while, we probably could push past it a little bit, right? But we just don't. Silence.
Awkward silence.
Good.
We're learning.
Yeah.
We just go silent until Melissa confesses to something, or like.
Yeah, right.
I know, right? No, you know what I was going to say earlier is my idol. Ryan, you know who that is. Who's my idol?
I was gonna. I don't know. Now you put me on the spot. My mind went. My mind went
Mr.
blank.
Rogers.
They
Oh
listen.
yeah, Mr. Rogers. Yes. No. Sorry. I was like. I'm like. Nick.
I'm so
Ryan.
glad
No.
she didn't.
No.
I'm so glad she didn't ask me.
Yeah.
Like,
She's.
Oh my goodness. Fred Rogers. Okay, so
Yes.
I don't know if any of you have seen the movie. It's a Beautiful Life, and they talk about his experience and his relationship with a reporter that was assigned to write this huge article on him, and the reporter was known for being quite nasty and really saying it like it was, and so people didn't want to work with him anymore. People didn't want him telling their story because they thought it was going to turn out to dig up the dirt on them and all that kind of stuff, because he was very real. And they portray him with Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Rogers in his usual fashion sat back in the silence, and the reporter wasn't comfortable with that. And he kept saying, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? And he was getting angry at Mr. Rogers every time they had a conversation, because he just sat back in the silence. He would ask one question and he would just sit back and see what happened. And they formed this incredible bond, and Mr. Rogers became friends with his wife and his father, who was dying, and it became this big, beautiful friendship. And this reporter ended up writing this huge story on him. It ended up being a huge piece, and it turned his career around. And it was this huge this bond that happened, and they really depict Mr. Rogers as sitting back in the silence and just listening and waiting for it, asking a key question and waiting for it. It was incredible to watch and see.
I think of another Roger. Yeah, go ahead, Paula, and I'll hold my thought.
Okay, that's so interesting that you say that. I mean, that's a perfect example of a pattern interrupt, that Melissa asking Ryan that question because he wasn't expecting it. And that's what happens, is your mind goes blank for a second, but in that blankness, you get present, and then you're connecting with that person. It's like, oh my gosh, let me think, what is who's her idol? And you stop thinking about yourself and what you want to say, and you get present. I love that.
And Melissa, we always joke with Melissa. She is the female Fred Rogers. Like, we've already put that intention out there. She can touch everybody's life and for the better, and she's doing it.
She's doing good. I think, Mr. Rogers triggered Carl Rogers in my mind, who is the father of humanist psychology. And his way of working with people is to have them hear themselves. And so he would feed back their conversation in his own words and not in a way that would be abrasive. And then they would clarify, and they'd go deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually they resolved their own issues. And so when people feel heard, they feel understood. And when they feel understood, they feel like they matter. And when they feel like they matter, they make a difference in the world. And so listening can be very impactful. Sometimes we do have something to say, but sometimes just sitting back and having people know that you actually hear them.
Mm-hmm. And I love what Hugh just said here. He said so many times when we ask a question, the answer is inside the question. And what Nick just said and what Hugh said there brought something to me. I've had conversations before that were completely one-sided, where someone just stood there and listened, and I came to the conclusion by myself. I asked the person a question, and it was the mere act of saying what I was thinking about out loud, and then thinking, no, that's not really how I wanted it. I wanted it like this. And the person literally just stood there and
I don't even need you.
And looked at me and didn't say anything. And I solved the problem right there just by saying it out loud to the person. And I was like, okay, great, thanks.
You know what I think that
conversation.
Yeah.
What that is it's moving the energy out of here. If you don't voice it out loud and hear yourself saying it, it gets stuck here. So it's great to have, even if you're in front of a mirror, let's just ask yourself the question or ask somebody else standing there. But I think that's important to move that energy out. Steve
Chandler used to say, even a lamppost would change your life if you would go talk to it every day, right? It is. It's getting that energy out.
Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to take us to a commercial break here. And we will be right back talking about being more genuine and authentic in conversation.
I love how Hugh just said, I get my best information from myself. It's true, right? That's where the inspiration can come from, is that but you can also be your worst critic. You can also get the worst stuff from yourself too. So you have to watch yourself, watch your
yes.
conversations,
We have to
self-talk.
be positive with ourselves, right?
I think of the word authentic and genuine. They both stem from the same root, primary, genuine. Like authenticness is coming from genuineness. And so I'd be curious, like how do you show up in a way maybe that's more useful? Because like going into the idea of, Justin, like you were talking about having a dialogue with certain people, you're doing that almost unconsciously. So that, to me, that would be genuine, but shifting it to where it's more powerful, right? I'd wonder about that.
I'd
Wait,
like
what
to
are you
talk.
asking?
No, I don't know if I was asking
When we
something or just
throwing out a topic
yeah,
word.
I don't know. We'll get to it. We'll in a roundabout way. We'll figure it out here. But
Okay.
When we
Yeah,
come
we've
back
got about a
into,
minute left.
I was thinking about a comment that was talked about earlier from Katrina, about digital body language and the loss of like certain things inside of digital communication, like text messaging, emails, those kinds of things. You read it
30
how you
seconds
perceive it. So
Yeah,
I'd love to dive into that a little bit. And
yeah. The texting conveying messages is tricky because it's
Yeah.
all about how they read it. You know, like you
give us
just-
a 10-second countdown.
yeah.
We're coming
That's a
back
tough
onto the radio here.
And that kind of bounces on. I think Diana asked the question like, can you notice when people are being disgenuine?
Let's hit that.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wake Up with Giants radio show. I'm Lady Luck, and I'm joined here in studio by Nick the Gentle Giant, Ryan the Lion, and our special guest co-hosts, Justin Middleton and Paula Meyer. And today we're talking about how to be more genuine and authentic in conversation. And I think coming back from this commercial break, we're going to move into text messaging and or the written word, right? And how to figure out where people are being genuine and authentic in the written word. Is that where we were headed?
I think Katrina was talking about. She made a comment. It was a little ways back, and it slid in, and I saw it. It was big. It was a big comment, not a little comment. It was long, but I saw it, and I went back and read through it, and how it can, it can trigger us. There it is, right there. So she said, I attended a really interesting conversation about digital body language. It was really interesting about how our digital communication can be misunderstood and can be triggered to our own emotional hijacking through not understanding what people mean by what they say when communicating online. Mm-hmm. And I've had this, I've experienced it, I'm sure we all have, where somebody says something and we hear it in their voice or in their mannerisms, and it could even be like, they could be like, what's up? We can hear it as like, what's up? like snarky. We could hear it, that could be whatever mood we're in. We might be going through some like something emotional, and then read it as emotional, or so let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, and I was going to say, lots of times we don't hear it in their voice, we hear it in our voice, where we currently are right now. We read it how we're feeling and how we might be saying it if it was us in that situation, not how the other
I hear everything in James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman. Yeah, even when you talk, Melissa, it's Morgan Freeman. I'm sorry. Simba.
The other thing that can happen too is in my experience, I have people that will record it. You know how on the iPhone you have the voice to record, and so they're recording this as they're doing whatever, and so it doesn't necessarily pick up spelling correctly, punctuation correctly, and it's just a random stream of thought that kind of goes through, and those kind of really hard to understand. And like Melissa said, she earlier about text message, sometimes you just got to stop, let it sink in. Make sure you understand it, and if you don't, maybe ask a question first before you respond with how you think they're saying it. Because I've responded incorrectly many times.
I enjoy
think we all have.
the Marco Polo or Voxer or the something where at least it can record my voice so they can hear
Yeah.
what I really meant to say,
Yeah.
especially when it's long. So if
Yeah.
it's just like, hey, what are you doing? I don't think you need to like record a big huge thing. Like
But
a
I
rhetorical
talk to
response.
people now where it's like, hey, comma, how are you doing, comma, and like I'm speaking to them, and it's like,
We've gotten
oh
those messages where we
yeah,
get like it says comma
yeah,
or
commas
period.
matter. Yeah, Justin, what do you think around that?
Or period, man.
Yeah,
Man,
man,
period.
period.
Man, period.
I sent a post to Ryan. I said, hey, what up, man? Period. There was no comma instead of what up, man, and then a period, or a period. That's what was missing. Anyway, that's a
Yeah.
little off topic, but yeah, it matters. Justin, we're throwing you way off, dude.
No,
What's coming up, man?
yeah, I mean, I think like y'all hitting on it, right? The digital, we only see part of the message, right? You look at some of these social medias and everything's filtered out to be, what the other person wants you to perceive, and body language and tone inflection. I mean, that's 80-90% of the conversation. So if you cut that out, like you can only get so much of what's really, meant to be said.
Yeah.
If it's something that's important, I think structuring time around an actual conversation is also just as important. Like, hey, let's pause this conversation and maybe pick it back up when we can actually jump on a call. I know I'm sure texting is probably 9 out of 10 conversations nowadays, but sometimes that one is worth a call, and just make the call.
You're talking about delivery, how it's delivered matters.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I've had very important things. I should have had an in-person conversation with that person rather than texting or sending an email. Even an email, even though it's a little bigger, can really lose communication there too.
I like the pausing, like you said. It's like, hey, let's pick this back up, because then sometimes the emotions can settle.
exactly.
Everybody can regroup, ground,
And it
then
also
come
gives
back
you
to it.
time to like kind of, get curious around the conversation, and it brings like a different presence to the second part of the conversation where you've had time to kind of process that and look at it from different views and really go over, what you wanted to say and what you were really trying to get at. And then, when you have that conversation, it's much more powerful, and it's much cleaner in a way.
Yeah, and it can be such a waste of time going back and forth texting. Oh, wait, I meant this. I forgot to put the smiley emoji. It was a joke. You
Yeah.
probably waste like 4 times what you could have done if you had just jumped on a call.
Or when you accidentally meant to do the smile emoji, but the one you sent before was the middle finger. So then you sent a bunch of middle fingers. You meant to put hearts. It can get messy, people.
I recall my mother texting me like, and this is back when like she was just getting into text messaging, so she wasn't hugely into it, and the phone she had at the time, it wasn't easy to text message on it. It was she had to go through a lot to get the right letters there and everything. So we're going back a while. I won't date myself, but we're going back a while. And so she would just answer me sure all the time, and I could just like I was picturing her like just throwing her hands up in the air and saying sure, like fine, whatever, like she was upset or like
with that.
and I finally one day just said to her like, are you mad at me? What's this sure? And she was like, no, I was just like answering short, that's all. I was just agreeing with you and answering short. It was like the easiest thing to write for
She
me.
says sure one more time.
Yeah, back to the automated response, like that's what she
Yeah.
had comfortable finding on the letters was sure, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
maybe that brings up, y'all talked about emojis, maybe that came from the disconnect of the conversations. Maybe emojis evolved to be part of the digital body language that we're supposed to be conveying. Like, I've never actually made that connection, but it makes perfect sense. I think the data has shown the disconnect in the texting, so they created a way for us to digitally show emotions, and that's through emojis. That's powerful.
Yeah. We should just finish up the show with emojis.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen the Emoji Movie?
I have,
No.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so cute. How and it's like it's basically how the emojis were created and they're who they are. They're like actual people and characters in a little town. and it's about Gene, the emoji, who's supposed to be a meh, and he doesn't want to be meh. He wants to be happy and sad, and he wants to be all of the emotions, and so he freaks out and does all of the emotions all at once instead of just meh. It's
That's
pretty
awesome.
cute.
I'm going to take us on another route here a little bit. In communication, in an environment like this where we all come together, there will be times where somebody, Paula, like you mentioned, you speak softly, loud, right? There's this pattern that comes up. And in a group, it tends to play out that way too. So you don't speak what you want to say because you hold back in the conversation. You're not the loudest one, or you're not the talker. I'm an introvert. And it serves you to stay as an introvert because you get to stay an introvert, but it doesn't serve you in the conversation, right? So for somebody that's maybe they're authentic and genuine when they speak, yet they don't speak very often, what would you guys suggest for somebody in that case?
Well, I would, for me, that's like who I was. And for me, I think it's practicing on your own before you get into a situation like that, of projecting your voice, singing out loud, reading yourself a story, practicing how to speak so that it connects to people and you feel comfortable about your voice. That's the biggest thing for me is I always used to say things like, oh, my voice sounds so stupid when I'd hear it on recordings or I'd hear, wherever I might hear it. And so we constantly downgrade what our voice sounds like. So then when we get in a crowd, we're afraid to speak up. But if we daily practice getting that energy out of our throat, getting our thoughts out, and so that we know that we can hold a decent conversation, that helps. And then of course you got to just take the leap and talk. The other important thing is the group that you're with. If you're with a group that is open to listening, that makes it even easier. If you're with your usual crowd that is used to you that way, it's going to be harder.
And I don't relate as much because I just talk a lot. So, but I have a daughter that doesn't, and so this is super useful because like I'm gonna force her now to watch our recording. when I go back, I'm gonna say, hey, I found something for you. But like the practicing of it, I can relate to that because I'm not good at certain things, or I'm not as good as I want to be in certain things. So I'm practicing so that I can develop those abilities and skills, because I think it can be acquired. It can be something that can be learned as you do it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that which we persist in doing becomes easier to do. Not that the nature of the task changes, but our ability to do it increases. Yeah. So as you're practicing, Paula, I don't see you as shy introvert. I see you as you're projecting your voice. You have lots to talk about, and when you do talk, it is very relevant to what's going on and full of wisdom. So
I want to point out a pattern here, because Navy SEALs, they practice. So when they get in the situation, it becomes automatic. It's just who they are and what they do, right? And what happens in speaking is, you talked about being afraid to speak. Public speaking is the number one fear that people have. They would rather die. I think somebody, Jerry Seinfeld told a joke. He said, you'd rather be the one in the box than the one giving the eulogy at a funeral, And it's this case where we get afraid, but give grace to your body, because in a stressful situation, when your body goes into the fight or flight response, because you talked about being afraid to speak, you're going to go into a fight or flight response. So what you've trained in is what's going to come up. And so when your brain shuts down and you can't think of anything to say, or you go back into that protective mode and you're surviving the situation, which speaking could be that, then give grace to yourself that that's going to happen, and work on things to calm yourself down, to get your brain back, and then get the courage to do what you practiced. Justin, what comes up there?
Yeah, for me, like you kind of started this conversation with, what does the quiet person have to say, and like how powerful is it? And usually when they speak, they're so much more impactful for a couple of reasons. Like, they've taken the time to stand back and listen to, how the entire conversation is unfolded. They've got the opinions and the views of everyone. And like, I have the tendency to call that person out, and not to put them on a spot, but I'm genuinely interested in, like, why are you so quiet? And what do you think about this? So, I will, hey, what are your thoughts on this, Paula? Like, I'm totally interested in what you have to say about this. and I spread the energy to them. Like I give them my energy, I give them the strength. And like, you know, if that's something as simple as a high five or a clap, like I'll pull the attention to me, but I want to hear what they have to say, and I want to give them the energy and the comfort and
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
to actually speak. My dad is that way. He's really quiet, but he's very, very smart. And when he speaks, it's like, dang, why did no one think of that? So a lot of times in family environments, like we're all on these tangents, and I'm like, Dad, what do you think? And it changes the entire dynamic of the conversation, and it gives us all that moment to pause and listen, right, to the wise man.
And I think, Ryan, with your daughter, you know, encourage her to read to you, and then tell her how amazing her voice sounds. If she's singing a song and she's not a good singer, don't tell her she's not a good singer. Tell her, wow, you have such a beautiful voice. And, you know, as kids, you know, we take those criticisms to heart. And, you know, any way that you can encourage her to speak up and feel like she's being heard and that her voice is beautiful will make a huge difference.
I love words like encourage and empower, because they're inside of the other person. You know, the idea of I'm going to make somebody mandate, you know, have them, force them to do it. There's no inspiration in them. And so words like encouragement and empowerment and inspiration put it back over there where they're the one doing all that energy. So Justin, what you do is giving up some of your power, your energy to them so that they could do that, at least get it started. They know what to do from there. I love that.
Energy is contagious, man. And like, it just spread it and give it around. Like, you know, some of us have more, you know, enough energy. So if we can give it out, like it makes it powerful. And yeah, usually it's just that initial step that's difficult. But once they kind of get rolling and all the nerves settle, it's natural. You just got to kind of push them, you know, or get them right to that edge and help them, you know, make that leap.
Yeah. I love what Justin is saying there. And I love that, that he's, finding the place that person is at, because I think when we're looking for authenticity, whether the person's an introvert or whatever they are, we need to find them where they're at, where their background is and where they're coming from. We've had that happen before in our family a couple years ago. My daughter, I guess, was 7 or 8 at the time, and I am Italian. I grew up in an Italian family where they talk really loud, and my grandmother would like talk at my grandfather over the table. Okay, she'd lean on the table, and nobody was mad. This was just everyday talking, right? And so we went to an Italian household for a holiday dinner. I think it was Easter, and my daughter. We're a very quiet household here. I'm an introvert. We're all very quiet. And so she was used to quiet talk. And so we went there and they're all talking really loud over dinner. She started to cry right in the middle of dinner because it was so loud. And she thought they were all mad at each other. And so she didn't have that experience and didn't know that it was okay. That's just how they talk. They talk loud and that's how they communicate with each other. So I think part of seeing the authenticity in a conversation is also knowing people's backgrounds and where they come from and what their culture is and what they've grown up with and where they are actually coming from to know where their authenticity is.
That's true, because like I see my way of being, I don't have a lot of people that a lot of disagreements or a lot of misunderstandings, because people can go, if they do misunderstand or not agree, they look at it and go, well, who is Ryan? And they know that most of the time I come out of a space of love and caring and compassion, consideration. So they know who Ryan is. So there's not usually, like, if they do misunderstand or read something wrong, they look at it and they go, wait a sec, well, that's not like Ryan. What was he trying to really say? And usually they'll ask, oh, what was that about? Oh, no, I was just saying this. Oh, okay, because I just read it wrong. Oh, okay, cool. So I don't have a whole lot of misunderstandings or things taken the wrong way because of my way of being. But I could see, like, with people that we don't know as well, then we have to watch and be conscious of how we talk, because we could get in a pattern of just, oh, well, they know me. Well, maybe they don't, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
And then that could cause some problems.
Yeah, I think Melissa actually brings up a really good point too. if you're going to bring someone into that conversation, or you're going to put that attention on them, or, you're going to try to spark them, you have a responsibility to not push them too far, right? Because you could have the negative result as well. And, I've been in situations where you bring, you're doing sales training, or you're doing like a group training or whatever, and you're going over scripts and you're just having fun with it. And that one person will start to shell up. And, it's since I brought them in, it's my responsibility to make sure that it doesn't get too far. And if I see they're going to break down, or it's going to put them in too bad of a situation and have the negative result, then I've had people, all the other people turn around and not look at them, or just stop it and just put the attention right back on me and let them kind of step back away. And that's something like we have to really pay attention to if we're going to, push people like that, and not push them, but you know what I'm saying?
You're hitting on awareness. I mean, not just personal awareness of what's going on within you, but awareness of everything that's going around along in that conversation. It's if you go unconscious. I've seen people do this where they'll act like they're listening, but then they just dialogue on, and then they're not aware that the other person has shut off. Like they're not paying attention to them anymore, but they don't see that. They just go right into their dialogue. And so being aware of everything that's going on around you allows you to be in the conversation fully, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My husband had a great way. He knew me so well. He could tell when I was checking out. So we're having a conversation, right? And he's talking and just, I don't know if it was my facial expressions or the energy I was giving off, or probably a combination of all those things. He knew, okay, she's not listening anymore. And he had a great way of just like, okay, let's stop the conversation for now, whatever, we'll get back to this.
Or even a quick check-in. Where are you at? How are you doing with this? What are you hearing? I love questions like that. And you'll see me use those all the time. What are you hearing this for you? Or what's going on over there? And it's a check-in. Yeah. It lets the other person know, hey, I'm still with you. I'm right here with you.
Right. And if you say it in a way that doesn't label them as like, instead of saying, you're not listening to me, I can tell.
You're a bad listener.
I love how you say, hey, let's
the worst.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. What's coming up for you? Yeah. What are you hearing?
But as an introvert, I have said to Nick before, don't spotlight me. Don't call me out. Because I'm sitting back, I'm listening, and I'll jump in when I'm ready to jump in. I've said that to him before. Don't call me out. Don't put me on the spot.
Yeah.
So I mean, he does sometimes, and it's great, and I love him for it. But as an introvert, sometimes I will say, don't put me on the spot. Don't call me out. If I'm feeling uncomfortable with a topic or with the subject, I'm sitting back listening, and I'll jump in when I feel comfortable.
And that's my opportunity to set my agenda aside, for a minute, right? Yeah. Because that's really what it is honoring what you need. And so, it's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else
All right,
is coming
I'm looking
up?
at the time here. We've got like 7 minutes to go. So does anybody have any like last words of wisdom, final thoughts that you want to give to all of our listeners?
I was reading last night, and this actually showed up, and it was kind of perfect for our conversation today. It was just a quote, short, simple. Who you are stands over you and thunders, so I cannot hear what you say. I just thought it was super relevant for what we're doing.
Huh. Yeah. Stephen Covey said something like that. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. And man, who you are thunders over what you're saying is kind of right in line with that.
Yeah. You're only allowing yourself to hear, what the thunder isn't covering up.
Makes me do like a personal inner check-in. Say, hey, how am I showing up? How am I being? What can I do different? Who can I listen to more? Can I be more conscious or more aware of others, and to be able to foster better relationships? But that also, it helps me to grow as a human being and as a person, that's pretty right on, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula, do you have any other final comments for our listeners?
I was putting together, I do some grief support courses every month, and we were the topic was kind of this, about not being heard. And I came across one of my favorite 80s bands, Tears for Fears. They have a song, I can't remember the name of it at the top of my head, but there's a line in it that says something like, the more I talk, the more I feel, the less you seem to hear. I'm speechless in a most peculiar way. And that's so resonated with me, because when we're around people that aren't really listening to us, and we're trying to talk, we're still speechless because they're not paying attention, or they're not connecting with us. And I just, that really resonated with me. And I just thought of that when you brought up that quote, Justin.
And who doesn't love Tears for Fears?
Right.
Yeah, I think.
Paula and Justin, where can our listeners find you guys? Do you want to tell them where they can find you if they're looking to reach out to you afterwards?
Go ahead, Paula.
Well, my website is greatlossgreaterlove.com. It's on my name there. So just go check it out. I do a free grief course for women once a month. The next one is coming up on September 11th. And it's just an hour we get together and work on bringing joy back in and moving through and beyond grief. So just my mission is to help women through loss, anybody really through loss, but loss is a big thing. We're all experiencing a ton of it right now. And it's important to stay centered and to be with the people that you can communicate, because connection and voice are so important when you're grieving. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll see me on the Facebook group. I'm always in the Giants trying to post, usually on there for anything Giant or running related. I do a lot of work on like Instagram. Well, I say a lot. I'm not really good with the digital or the social medias, but they're a necessary evil nowadays. But on social media, on Instagram, I'm at make_way. That's MAYK_way, WAY. I'm also on LinkedIn, Justin Middleton on LinkedIn. That's a good way to find me. I spend a lot of time on there during the week. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Nick, you were going to say something before I cut you off.
Yeah, I don't remember, because this was way better than what I was going to say. So I'm good. I'm complete. Yeah.
Just kidding. Nick has a ton of great things to say. And if you have the chance to follow him, you can go into a Tribe of Giants and see the things that he posts, because he does some videos and content that's always inspiring, relevant. He's great at getting you to think and to be able to take inventory and have some expansive thinking, because as he wants you to be a giant, and he has a soft heart and a big heart. He's Nick the Gentle Giant, but he's got a powerful voice and a powerful message. So I'm throwing back some love your way, Nick.
That is awesome, man.
I love you, Uncle Nick.
I received that. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Special thanks to our expert guests, Justin Middleton and Paula Meyer. And I'd like to invite everyone who's listening to stay tuned for Get Your Life Back with Ashi Mittal and Michaela Chess, right here at 2:00 on Cat Country Radio. And we want you to come back next week and join us with our special guest co-host, Alec Dumas. And we'll be talking about how to have great energy in enrollment conversations. That is one place where I'm not very strong, but I think Nick and Ryan are pretty strong in that area too. So come on back next week and join us with Alex Dumas. This has been episode 29 of Wake Up with Giants Radio, how to be more genuine and authentic in conversation with Justin Middleton and Paula Meyer. We're going to say goodbye to all of you.
Love you too.
Bye.
So we're just playing our outro there. And then we will
Hi,
be
social
off
media.
Yeah,
love
say
you.
Hello to all of our social media friends still. Hugh says fractal facts.
Fractal facts.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Mancheri says love you all. Steve is still here. He says most excellent. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mancheri.
Mr. Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm reading Steve's book right now. I'm going to give him a little plug. I'm reading his new book right now. I'm so excited to be reading it.
Yeah, go to theultimatecoach.com. You can learn all about Steve Hardison and his amazing way of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the right word for him, huh? Almost unreal. Unbelievable, but believable.
Paul and Justin, thank you. This is great. Yeah, thanks for
you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Can't wait to meet in person, everybody.
Oh my goodness, everybody.
I'll be out there soon.
Oh,
We're going to take this from the ethereal talking about it. We're going to create, it's going to be a tangible thing. So we're going to set a date and it will be real.
we think warm and sunny, right, Paula? We're
Yes.
thinking like a beach somewhere. So
Yes,
Oh, then
please.
yeah, y'all come here. Come here. That's
The
perfect.
Florida, yeah.
see, there you go. Yeah,
Justin.
yeah.
Justin,
Yeah.
what part of Florida are you in?
I'm in the Tampa Bay area.
Oh, okay. I have family in Tampa.
Really?
See,
Mhm.
It's beautiful. See, there's your second excuse to come down.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, we're going to
Some
thank
great
all
thoughts.
of our social media friends, and we're going to say goodbye to all of you. And please do, if you're on social media, please do go over to Cat Country Radio, thedonpiercestudios.com, and listen in to Get Your Life Back. That's the next show right after us. And join us next week for how to have great energy in enrollment conversations with Alex Dumas. We're going to say goodbye to all of you. Have a wonderful Sunday, my friends.